So, Vusimuzi Matlala and his Burberry gear worth tens of thousands of rand spent the day testifying before Parliament's ad hoc committee at the Vusimuzi prison. And while he's thrown Bheki Cele under the bus and he's basically protected Senzo Mchunu, I think it's interesting to note how Matlala was comfortable admitting before the committee that he made payments to politicians, particularly Bheki Cele, to make his woes with the police vanish. So let's talk about it.
So I've been seeing the purple profile picture community comments on Matlala saying that, oh, he's such a good looking criminal, oh, he's a well taken care of criminal, he's a what, and the gents are having a field day with it. And someone made an example and said, this is exactly what happens when a man that is not good looking harasses you. It feels like harassment, but when a good-looking man harasses you, you feel like it's flirting, you feel like it's what. And I was like, I hear you. Because why is this man, how do you see him as handsome? With me, I was shook. I was shook. And then somebody tagged me and is like, look at your purple gang. You with purple profile, look at your purple gang. I was like, Mara, guys, discredit everything. Discredit the people community. Because this week we're fighting for women's rights. We're fighting against GBV. The next week, the very same people are out here looking at this who is like a perpetrator of the GBV saying, ooh, he's good looking. Ooh, I wouldn't mind. Sis, man. Ish. But, you know, it's...
Sure, but that cat Matlala is so... A man accused of attempted murder of a woman. Oh, look, I know he's guilty, but Cat Matlala is just so... A man who is accused of attempted murder of his girlfriend, which is GBV. Have you seen that Cat Matlala, though? Sure, he's such a... A man who is accused of trying to kill a woman, regardless of what he looks like. But that Cat Matlala is such a... A man who tried to kill a woman, allegedly.
Let's all unite for GBV. Women. 2 seconds later, oh yes, the cat is not that bad. A person who attempted to unalive a woman, that is part of GBV. But he's cute because he's got money, because you are always dating from a point of poverty and hunger. Do you see why I say mental poverty is very dangerous? Because it will make you overlook other things. Why do you even have the purple profile, actually? I don't understand.
So, to my surprise, Vusimuzi Matlala actually had a lot to say as he sat before Parliament's ad hoc committee, despite having tried to avoid appearing before the committee just the day before. First, he claims to have met General Mkhwanazi to discuss the controversial 360 million rand police tender that he was so desperately trying to score. And he claims that meeting was set up by none other than Bheki Cele himself. Now, Matlala also claims that Mkhwanazi was in on it and basically was supporting him, and even told him who held the lid or the tap on the tenders in the police. And then he claims not to have any real connection to General Shadrack Sibiya. He says that he's spoken to Sibiya for about 30 minutes max to report a crime, an irregularity regarding a public works building, and this was linked to his company Medicare 24. But he says beyond that, there's no relationship.
Maybe I'm strict and maybe I'm too woke now, but when did we decide as a country to give Cat Matlala VIP treatment? Like when was this decision held? Why never sweet as a community to talk about this? Because why am I seeing grown men, pillars of strength, calling another guy a crot man? Why am I seeing grown women saying sabawel to a man who tried to kill his wife? Why? Why are we giving this guy roaming coverage? Have we all collectively forgotten that this brewer is implicated in some horrendous stuff? Our tax money, we jail and we're giving this guy royal treatment. Awa guys, lewa ring. Awa.
Cat Matlala managed to capture the hearts of the South Africans, and it's sad to witness. Or let me say, managed to capture some hearts of the South Africans. but it's sad to witness. It's very sad to witness. At some point in Parliament, there was a moment whereby Julius Malema was talking about how his kids were made to lie on the floor by the police officers who had come to Vusimatlala's house. And I could see the mood, even in Parliament, in that committee. It was somber. In fact, you'd swear that Vusi studied political dynamics. And not just political dynamics, but political tactics in the political dynamics. Because towards the conclusion of his testimony, that was yesterday, he used the political tactic called the appeal to emotion.
I think we can admit that this was a complete waste of time and state resources. I can imagine how much was spent in actually moving the entire ad hoc committee to Hoshimamporo's correctional services to interview a well-known criminal who is behind bars for the attempted murder of his ex-girlfriend, Devhotebojane. He denied everything. And misdirected the committee. He denied any closeness with Lieutenant General Sibiya, even with all the coincidences that put them in the same place together, including the wedding of Lieutenant General Sibiya's son, which he says, no, I wasn't invited. It was my wife who was invited by a friend of hers. And then she called me later on. She said, I've had a little bit too much to drink. I'm not feeling well. Come fetch me. And he went there to fetch her. And she says, no, let's finish the wines. But he said she wasn't feeling well. He says when he was there, that's when he realized, hey, this is General Sibiya's son's wedding. He must think we're foolish.
Don't judge me, but I feel like Kat Matlala is innocent. He's the victim here. I really, really feel sorry for him. Stop typing. That is not my opinion. That is what some of you are saying in the comment section in response to his sad, sad life story. Cue the violin music. He had it pretty rough growing up. He was a street kid at some point. His mother was albino, and so she was abused. He only reconnected with her, I think, later on when she had a terminal illness. I could be getting that wrong, but that's basically what he said. He had it pretty rough. And I'm not discounting his story, by the way. I'm not. A lot of people have had tough upbringings, but those very same people aren't accused of what he's accused of. Believe it or not, even the most corrupt business people have redeeming qualities. If he had channeled all that tenacity in a more productive, in a more constructive, ethical way, sure, maybe he wouldn't have bagged a 360 million rand SAPS tender, but he wouldn't be out on the streets, or at least I don't think he would. And get this, he would probably sleep better at night. Because you best believe some of those people living in those multi-million rand Sandhurst homes panic when they see that VW Hawks vehicle driving down the road. I refuse to believe that every successful businessman or businesswoman had to grease some palms to get ahead, or even end up having to try to unalive somebody just to keep their mouths shut. And yes, it's not lost on me that there are tons of Kat Matlalas out there who probably never see the inside of a courtroom, but for those who do, and the house of cards comes crashing down and collapses, everything changes. Would it have been worth it?
But it was when he started speaking about Bheki Cele where things got a little interesting, because he claims to have paid Bheki Cele about R500,000 in exchange for some favors. One of those favors is for the recovery of his firearms after his house was raided by police. Matlala says Cele spoke to someone named Khumalo, who we presume to be General Dumsani Khumalo, who was behind that raid to get his firearms back. And he says indeed, after Cele said, go and collect your firearms, he got his firearms back. Now, you may remember that Bheki Cele, before the same ad hoc committee, claimed that he only kept Matlala close because he was sourcing information from him. And he said that one of the pieces of information that he'd learned was that Matlala was going to be funding Senzo Mchunu's presidential campaign. But Matlala's denied this, saying he doesn't have that kind of money, but also he hasn't really met Senzo Mchunu to be funding his presidential campaign. He's basically accused Bheki Cele of lying under oath. Ultimately, Matlala has contradicted the evidence of Bheki Cele and almost corroborated the evidence of Senzo Mchunu. So I don't know, who do you believe? Also, don't you find it incredibly disrespectful when people accused of corruption come out in public draped in designer head to toe? I mean, what a way to middle finger the public, to middle finger the people that you allegedly stole from. Skibenga, skibenga.